Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Sales TV. And this week, we're joined by our friend, Paul Burgess, who's
Hello.
going to talk about mental first aiding, mental health, particularly given that it's Mental Health Awareness Week. So, first of all, Paul, please introduce yourself to the audience.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Adam. Thanks for inviting me on. So, I'm Paul Burgess. I where do I start? So, my interest in mental health. I mean, I do social media for a small mental health charity that's based in Berkshire called Sporting Mind. I've got the wearing the brand.
Nice.
And my own personal interest in mental health, I suppose, goes back 30 years or so when I had my own mental health problems and was diagnosed with depression. And that was a time when people just didn't talk about it, especially us blokes. We just didn't talk about it. Even 30 years ago, it wasn't talked about as much as it is now, mental health problems. But fast forward on to 6 or 7 years ago, and the event that changed my outlook and changed the way I thought and made me want to do what I'm doing now was losing my best friend to suicide. And that gave me a bit of a kick up the backside. And I started doing some mental health awareness raising in the corporate world that I was inhabiting then, and became a mental health first aider through work. They were quite forward thinking at the time. They had some mental health first aiders. I trained as one of those. But then got made redundant at the end of 2020, and I then started doing some freelance work, helping organisations understand how they might spot the signs that someone might be struggling with their mental well-being, especially in that environment. It seems so long ago sometimes, but it seems so recent other times. The pandemic, when we all started working from home, no one knew what was going on. And it was a little bit more difficult to spot if people were having problems if you weren't in the same room as them. Another quick fast forward, and I started a social media job for a museum a couple of years ago, and through that, I ended up picking up the job that I've got with Sporting Mind now. So looking after their social media feeds. This week is a particularly busy week for us, especially as the theme for mental health awareness this week is movement, about finding moments to move, because it's been proven that physical activity is good for your physical well-being, but it's also very good for your mental well-being as well.
Right.
So as the leading UK sports-related mental health charity, we are very busy this week.
I can imagine. So you use the expression mental first aider.
Yep.
And I kind of get what that is. You know, these are two concepts that I can put together, and
Yes.
so what does that actually entail?
So mental first aid is the same as a physical first aider, right? Everyone knows what a first aider is. You go on a St John's ambulance course, or whatever organisation might run the course, and you know how to give that first assistance should someone hurt themselves, should someone need some sort of assistance, be that in the work environment or outside the workplace. Mental health first aid gives someone who is experiencing some sort of mental health issue that reassurance, that first line of support. One thing when I was doing my freelance stuff, and even now, I'm not a mental health professional. I'm not medically trained, not clinically trained in any way, shape, or form. But mental health first aid, you go through some training, and you know how to help calm someone down. For example, if they're having an anxiety attack, panic attack. I think the more common phrases, but we talk about anxiety rather than panic attacks. So yeah, it's just being there to provide that first line of support, but ultimately making sure the person who is experiencing that mental health problem is safe and isn't going to harm themselves in any way.
So sales, we all know that sales is a very stressful job. You know, it's there are a whole host of reasons for that. You know, constant no's from people, and you know, undermining people's sense of self-worth.
Yeah.
The pressure of having to achieve your number, having a whole host of criteria that you're measured against, some of which are activity based and some of which are results based. So often salespeople are being pounded from all sides with things that they have to achieve and ways that they're measured and challenges that they have to overcome. So I guess, what can salespeople do to try to stay in a good place? I mean, clearly, if you're working for a fantastic company that's being very supportive and has got loads of resources that are available to you, that's one thing. But certainly, many salespeople in many sales teams feel that they're alone. So what can you do? What simple steps can you take to hopefully not start to see a deterioration in how you're feeling?
That's a good question, Adam. And just a little bit more about my background is I've been on the other side of the sales side of things, if that's the right way to say it. But certainly when I was in the pharmaceutical industry, I was involved in the sales analytics team. I led a sales analytics team in a couple of companies. So I would be the one that would be helping to set those targets that obviously the people out in the field then had to meet, both activity and sales based. And so I had a lot of contact with salespeople, and and you're right. I've had conversations where they said we just you feel like you're on your own out there. Especially if you've got a large patch of the country to cover. If you're working up in the north of Scotland, for example, and you've got a huge patch of the country to cover, it can be a little bit lonely out on the road. I mean, in terms of what people can do, I think keep in touch with other people. Make sure you do keep in regular contact with your colleagues. Making sure you're having those regular conversations. You're not spending too much time on your own. Taking time out to do something different. I think it's a little bit. It always very easy to get so tied up in meeting those targets on activity, meeting those targets on sales, making sure you get that deal across the line. It can be very easy to forget to take time out of the day. I mentioned to you before we came onto the call yesterday, I was on social media all day telling people to get out and move and get away from their computer. And actually, I got to 5:30 yesterday afternoon and realised I hadn't done that myself. So it is very easy to get tied up sometimes and not take the break that you need away from a screen and away from driving if someone's field based and they're spending a lot of time in the car. Take some time, even if it is just 10 minutes, to get outside. Go and hear the birds sing. Go and stand on some grass. If you're lucky enough to be by some water, go and just have a look at the sea or the river. Properly listen to a piece of music. I mean, you know this, Adam. What a difference a piece of music can make to your mood. So actually, switch off totally. Listen to one of your favourite bits of music. Properly listen to it, not as background music. And if you are feeling a little bit stressed, a little bit like you're under too much pressure, tell someone about it. Don't bottle it up. It's the worst thing you can do, because it doesn't get any better if you don't talk to anyone about it.
It's amazing you should say that, Paul, because you should actually see the mood change in Adam's house when he just plays some music on one of those guitars.
It might make him feel better, but the rest of the family not so much.
That's a mental torture, but we'll skirt over that.
Yeah. So I guess that there's one of the challenges that I think everybody has in the modern world is that it's really fast paced.
Mm-hmm.
So my day today, I'm doing this first thing. I've immediately got a call with a prospective partner. Then I'm doing a 2-hour training module. Then I've got a 1-hour video call. Then I've got a 1-hour training module. Then I've got 2 coaching sessions. So literally, with the exception of about 30 minutes, I'm on calls, delivering stuff literally all day today. And today is a particularly busy day from that perspective. So, I'm having to manage my time, making sure I can grab a sandwich, try to finish that call 5 minutes early and start this one 5 minutes late, and dovetail all of this stuff together. And it doesn't bother me, because dovetailing these things back to back is a rarity. Normally there's an hour here and an hour there during the course of the day when I'm not actually shoulder to the grindstone. But how do we recognize that this too will pass? It's all very well that today is frantic, tomorrow will be a lot easier, and I can look forward to tomorrow if this was something that was stressing me. But how do I also spot the trait that I'm starting to fall into a pit, rather than just saying, God, it's a hard day today, which is fine. We all have hard days, we all have easy days, but there comes a point, doesn't there, when this stops being well, I'm glad that's over, to, oh my God, I wish this was over. So how do I spot that it's going from one to the other?
I mean, first and foremost, what you just talked about. So you've got a busy day today. There's a little bit of pressure there. There might be a little bit of stress involved, and stress isn't a bad thing necessarily. The problem starts when that stress doesn't go away. And if we go back millions of years, that stress, which is the feeling in the pit of your stomach, which is the adrenaline starting to flow, and you're in a slightly stressful situation, that was really useful to our ancestors who were hunting whatever animals they were hunting to get their dinner or whatever. But we don't have to go out and hunt and get our own food. Well, I don't know, you might do, but I don't think we go out and hunt for our food. We don't have to fight other animals, other people to get through the day. So we live a sedentary lifestyle in front of a laptop all day, but we still get stressed about things, certain things. But because we're just sitting down all the time, and this is obviously a massive sweeping generalization, but because we're sitting down a lot of the time, that stress doesn't go away. So that stress builds and builds and builds, and that's when the problem can start. It's when the stress starts taking over your life and starts making you feel unwell. And that feeling of unwell could be that sense of dread you vocalized just then, which is, oh no, I've got to get through this. How am I going to do that? That Sunday evening feeling that some people might get before going into work on a Monday morning. That's not ideal. That could be a sign that things are getting a little bit too much. Things like changing heart rate. So changing heart rate when adrenaline kicks in is normal, but if that continues and that starts to become palpitations, that starts feeling like it might be some kind of anxiety attack, that's not good. It could cause problems with your stomach. A lot of people have stomach problems if they're feeling stressed. So your body is really good at telling you if things are getting a little bit too much for you. So I don't think any of us do it anywhere near enough, but we really should listen to what our body's telling us. You might be getting a lot of headaches. You might be feeling very tense. A lot of stress goes into the shoulders, especially as we're sat at laptops a lot of the time. A lot of us. So yeah, there are plenty of signs. Other things to look out for, especially if you're working with other people and they become a little bit withdrawn, they don't contact you quite as often as they might do. I mean, obviously a lot of people are still working in that working from home or hybrid environment. If someone's constantly on a Teams call or a Zoom call and they're not using their camera, you can only have so many bad hair days. Obviously, me and you, Adam, maybe not so much, but using the excuse for a bad hair day or not looking great is fine if it's a one-off. But if that becomes more regular, then there might be a sign that someone has a deeper problem and just doesn't want to be seen, doesn't want to interact with other people. People working too much. So if you're working with someone and they're sending emails at 3 o'clock in the morning regularly, then that might be a sign that they're just going into that work is their way of escaping, but they're not really escaping. It's just making them more stressed. Lots of different signs to look out for.
So if I identify these signs in myself or someone around me, what are the first steps that I can take to start to ease this? I was going to say alleviate, but it's probably probably not such a big step. So ease this problem.
So if we look at stress and mental ill health. So if we think about a stress container, so if you think, let's have a think about it. Maybe a big vat of grain with a wheel at the bottom, a valve at the bottom that would let it out. If you think of that as being where all your stress goes into, so all of the things that are causing you stress in your life, be it work problems, be it problems with a relationship, you might have just someone in the family might have died, you might have money problems. All of those things go into your stress container, and we all have resilience to a certain extent to that amount of stress. But sometimes you might get something and that stress container overflows. So you need to release some of the pressure. Ways of releasing the pressure, there are good ways and there are not so good ways. Good ways are things like exercise, going out for a walk. If you're sport, football, just triggered Siri. Let's just get that.
Which league? Premier League or
Love Siri. So yeah, a sport you might play, so tennis, football, walking, running, whatever it might be, get out and do some of that. A hobby, playing the guitar, listening to music, making a puzzle, whatever it might be, take part in a hobby. These are all good ways to release the stress. Less helpful ways are that one glass of wine at the end of the day that turns into a bottle of wine, and that bottle of wine once a week turns into a bottle of wine 2 or 3 times a week and then more. Or drugs, be they recreational or prescription drugs, if someone starts using those more as a way of releasing that pressure, that's not good. Overwork is another not so good way. People think that they're dealing with the stress by actually doing more work, but it's not that helpful sometimes. So concentrate on the good ways to release the pressure, to empty your stress container a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I think that we've all been through periods when we have been very stressed. I mean, obviously there'll be many people that are currently in one of those periods. And one of the things that I have always, and a friend of mine who was a counsellor, it's interesting having a friend that's a counsellor, because every time you have a conversation with them, they go, but is that really what you're feeling?
I know. So, you get those questions, don't you?
Yeah.
Answered by you, thank you.
Yeah, and he said, he used the expression, wherever I go, there I am. Because to a certain extent, we think, okay, I'm in a really bad place at the moment, either relationship or money worries or business or overworked or no work to do or whatever the challenge may be, and we tend to think, but things will be okay when this passes, when we've resolved that, when we've landed that piece of business, or when we found that new partner, or when this project is put to bed, or whatever. And obviously that's quite dangerous, because A, you can't predict when that's going to happen, and B, there's normally something that falls. When you keep saying, "Oh yeah, I can do that. I need more of this. I need more," then that you kick that can down the road. So how can we be more structured about recognizing that we need to live life in the moment, rather than when I retire, then I can start to have fun?
Well, that's a really deep question for 9 o'clock on a Tuesday morning, isn't it? How can we, I mean, speaking my personal situation, I'm talking to you about my situation and my own journey with mental health, and obviously losing my friend, and that one of the reactions to that for me was just, I've just got to get out and do stuff, right? We only have a short period of time on this ridiculous place called Earth, so we just got to make the most of it. And you it's a cliche, isn't it? But no one's going to have written on their gravestone, "I wish I'd gone to the office more." So yeah, just got to build those good things into each day, and actually do the things you enjoy, do the things that you give you every day. And a good example of this, so when we went into the pandemic, that first lockdown, I used to hate my 40-minute drive up towards Heathrow to go into work every day. I was doing that 5 days a week, 40 minutes along the M4, 40 minutes back, and those 40 minutes was good. It was often more than that. I used to hate the commute. When I started working from home during the pandemic, I realised that I needed that commute. So I needed that time to myself. As much as I hated the drive and the journey and being on the M4, I actually needed that time in the morning to mentally prepare for the day ahead, think about the meetings I had, the people I needed to talk to, the work I needed to do. And at the end of the day, I needed to decompress a little from the day at work.
Yeah.
So I turned that into what I called my fake commute during lockdown. And that's continued most days of the week now, where I go out for a walk in the morning. I go out for a walk, and then at the end of the day, try and go out for a walk at the end of the day as well. And that's my thinking time and my decompression time. Although that said, the roles I have now, I don't feel I need quite so much decompression time at the end of the day. It's a less intense environment than I worked in when I was in the corporate world. So
it's probably more intense, but it's just more suited to you, and you feel that you're doing something.
I'm fortunate to be doing work that I absolutely love doing.
But isn't that part of the challenge then?
That is part of the challenge, Andy. Yeah, and if I look back to what I did in the corporate world, I was good at what I did, but it was never what I wanted to do.
You just fall into it. I mean, I'm being amazingly open. I look back now, and I'm not in great places, but I look back now, Paul, and go, I have no idea what the hell I achieved for 16 years in one IT supply. And I look back at the behaviours and go, yeah, okay, different time, but you go, no.
Yeah.
And you kind of look at it, and it's, to me, it's all about the corporate world's gone a bit skew with. And we measure everything, but it's all the wrong stuff.
And what gets measured gets done.
Yeah.
But it doesn't necessarily mean that those are the right things to measure in the first place.
No. I don't know if you know.
I had one of my pharmaceutical companies when I was in the sales analytics team. What are we going to measure? And everyone just goes back to, let's measure activity, let's measure sales.
Yeah.
But how good are the conversations that the salespeople are having with the potential customers of whatever product?
But how do we make those employees feel? So there's a great tool that we've got which measures employee engagement and experience. And if you look at two great authors from Harvard, Amy C. Edmondson has measured for 20 odd years psychological safety in the workplace. So if you go on, the fearless organization, people who are feeling psychologically safe are in a better place. And there's another one, Sean Aker, the happiness advantage. And happier employees are more productive.
Yeah,
it's not rocket science. So
it's not at all, is it?
If we actually said, you know what, Paul? Yeah, you're in the analytics team. I want you to measure psychological safety of the team, and I'd love you to measure happiness. Then what we're going to do is going to be really freaking wacky here. We're going to go and measure how customers feel, the emotions that they get from our salespeople, and we'll prove out actually happier, engaged, psychologically safer employees give customers a greater time, and it will give more performance.
Yeah.
But we don't measure that. But actually, somebody did measure it. They measured it in BT, believe it or not, and they found out that happier salespeople sold 13% more than unhappy salespeople.
What was the criteria of happiness?
I'll find the paper and I'll send it over to you.
That sounds very interesting.
Because there's another paper, I just tried to get it on there. That's there's a great paper which we'll put out on the stream called Can't Leave It at Home.
Okay.
And it measures salesperson burnout, but it looks at the three things that salespeople walk in the door with before salespeople even touch them, or sales leaders even touch them. But then we managed to accelerate that with, basically depersonalization, which is my own personal beef that we teach salespeople, we train them all as if they're equal. It's like, but adult learning theory and cognitive learning practice, which you'll be in deeply, tells you that actually if you've been in sales or if you've been in any job for 30 years, sticking people in a classroom and saying you will learn by us freighting knowledge to you is an allergic reaction. It's like, you stay there while I just give you 45 PowerPoints, Paul.
Yep.
Really? What does that help?
Love it. Love death by PowerPoint.
Yeah. But that's the challenge, isn't it? Which
yes, that is.
Somehow in sales we dictate to everybody, we know what you need to know, we know what you need to be measured on, and we're going to do it to you, not with you. Oh, great. And then we're surprised that young people don't want to go into sales anymore, because that big secret's out now, isn't it? That Forecast Friday.
We all love a bit of Forecast Friday. Yeah. We also love going into the office and not being allowed a chair until we've got our first meeting, and a bell to ring every time we get yeah. No, it's an antiquated way of doing things. So here's, and obviously, you know, we're kind of approaching time. So I love, and I quote this quite a lot, I love the apocryphal story about the guy driving through a town he doesn't know, and he pulls over to the side of the road and he says, "Excuse me, can you tell me how to get to Main Street?" And the guy says, "Well, I wouldn't start from here if I were you." And it kind of strikes me that we have a huge legacy of doing things the wrong way. You know, we've been copying the wrong person's homework basically for 50 or 100 years. We need to remap everything. So we're putting people in. So how do things need to change, Paul? What does a decent working day look like, and what are decent objectives that we should be encouraging our teams to sign up for?
I think a decent working day will include and how it's structured in terms of what bit comes where will come down to the individual person and what they need to achieve in that particular day, or even in that particular week. So you might have a working week of 5 days. You might have one day where that person's not necessarily doing that much to do with what they need to achieve that week, but if it allows them to do something that they need to achieve personally, which will put them in a better place mentally, then yeah, do we all need to be working 9 to 5 days a week, or do we need to be working the hours it takes to achieve what we want to do? And going back to not working silly hours, not working to the early hours of the morning, but sometimes that might work for someone. You know, getting that work done later on at night might allow them to spend some more time with their children, do the school run, for example. I mean, this is something when I did take redundancy at the end of 2020, I realised that I hadn't actually done the school run for either of my children that much at all. In all the time I've been at work, I'd been out working, and you know, it was a rarity if I took one of them to school or went and picked them up, and I love that. So if a working day can include time to do all the things that someone wants to do, so a little bit of exercise, if they want to go for a run in the morning, then maybe start a little bit later, that shouldn't be a problem. If they want to spend some time with their family, including dropping kids off at school and picking them up, then that shouldn't be a problem. It should be quite easy to incorporate that. But you obviously need to be mindful of working for an organisation. You know, organisations are businesses, and they need to make money, otherwise they're not going to be there. So there's quite a lot to think about. But I think organisations do need to allow their employees time to do the things that will make them in a better space mentally. Allow them time to you know do the things they enjoy, and not just do a tick box exercise. I think this is what I started to see, especially out the back of that whole lockdown period. Some organisations were putting things in place, and it seemed like they were just ticking a box. I remember working for doing a presentation to one company, and I talked about what I was going to cover. And I talked about allowing people time away from their desk if they needed to get away. and was told by the HR team, "Oh, you can't say that. We don't like them to be away from their desk during working hours." I'm like, well, okay, well, why are you employing me to come and talk about mental well-being if you're saying that people can't leave their desk?
Yeah, exactly.
Don't just get someone in to talk about it and then just not do it at all. But for me, the big learning point for me is my fake commute. I need that time at the beginning of the day to think about how the day's going to go, and at the end of the day to decompress a little bit.
Brilliant. So, Paul, thank you so much. What a fantastic insight. And thank you, everyone in the audience and people that are going to be watching this subsequently. So how can people get in touch with you, Paul?
Find me on LinkedIn. That's probably the best way to get in touch with me. I'm happy to connect with anyone who feels they might want to connect with me and talk a little bit more.
Fantastic. So thank you all very much indeed. We'll see you on tonight's show, hopefully, or next week. So until then, have a great week, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Paul. Well done. Great job.